Hi, I'm Alex Elle, and I write books for a living. The Hey Girl podcast was created with sisterhood and storytelling in mind. Hey girl.
Hey girl.
Hey girl.
Hey girl.
I'll be sitting down with some phenomenal women to discuss love.
I believe we grew distant out of love of some type, I don't want to hurt you.
Loss.
Really don't know what's going to trigger that feeling of grief in any moment.
And a topic very important to my work, self-care.
Freedom is self-care. It's not about pedicures. It's not about clothing. It's not about trips.
Join us as we journey through sharing together. Today on the show, we have Dana of Wild We Roam. She and her husband left their home and are now traveling Europe in a van. I am so excited for you guys to hear about their adventures and what they're learning as they're moving through the world. This is Dana's story. Hey, girl.
Hey, girl.
It is so good to have you on the show, Dana. How are you today?
This is such a treat. I kind of feel like starstruck or something. I have been following you for so long, and now I'm actually talking to you. Quite exciting.
I'm really happy to have you, and I've been following you on social media for such a long time, and just to see you and your partner's evolution through everything has just made me so excited, and I look forward to seeing you guys share your journey on social. But before we dive into all of the fun stuff that you and Lou are doing, can you please let us know a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Sure. So my name is Dana, and my partner, my husband and I, his name is Lou, we currently live in a van, and what we do full time is make YouTube videos, and that has been something we've been working towards for the last almost 4 years.
Wow.
We were based in Berlin for 3 years, and that's kind of where we started this creative career. Before that, we had been in New York. So after I graduated from college, I went and worked in New York for a couple of years, and I was living with Lou then, and he ended up working in a production company, and I was working at a startup, and then something happened, as the startup fell apart that I was working at, this tech startup, and I'd been working like 90-hour weeks and all this stuff, and I was exhausted, and he was at this production company, and we're kind of like, what if we did our own production company? And that was kind of this first inkling of like, what if we worked together and then we would actually get to see each other,
right?
And then we could do something creative. And yeah, I would never have predicted a creative career for myself, but it is incredible.
So why van life? Because that is something I've been excited about from you guys since last year when you first started sharing that, okay, we are going to take this on the road in a van. And I was just like, how on earth are they going to do this? And I was just so intrigued. So I want to know why van life, and, what really pulled you guys into living this minimalistic lifestyle while falling in love with the land around you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of what actually initially sparked it, and I'm not quite sure. I'm sure we probably saw somebody else living in a van on YouTube or on social at some point, and we were like, wow, that sounds so interesting, because we were living in Berlin, but luckily Lou's parents actually own an apartment in Berlin. They bought it like 10 or 15 years ago when the market was very different and before Berlin was cool, and they ended up letting us live there. And so we lived in Berlin, but it was kind of like still the equivalent of living in your parents' basement. It's like we weren't earning a lot of money. We just started out as creative, so we weren't really seeing Europe, even though both of us grew up in the States, and I'm American. Lou's half German, half Peruvian. He's kind of got his own story.
Yeah.
But we both grew up in the States, and we really wanted to see Europe, but we didn't really earn money. So we were like, okay, like what is the best way for us to actually see this place? And that's kind of when the van thing really picked up in our mind. We were like, this would be so much fun. We could, instead of just, dropping into a city, you actually get to stop in all these small little places and see so much more and meet so many more people, and kind of go on your own schedule, and you're not, paying for a hotel or an Airbnb or renting a car. You just have this freedom. And I think that freedom appealed to Lou and I so much. And, we're vegan, and so we would have our own kitchen with us. And so it just seemed like the perfect fit, and it would be really fun to film. And that's always something that's on our mind, like what could we make interesting content about? And so then this idea kind of just grew and grew and grew until it had grown like spiraled out of control. And even when it started getting impossible, like my visa ended up getting like denied. And then we were like, oh gosh, what are we going to do? And Lou's half German. He has a German passport. And I mean, Lou and I are completely madly in love and we're planning on getting married.
Yeah.
But then it was like, my visa done. Go home. We got married. It was amazing. And then, buying a car in Germany. There's just like so many obstacles. I think the idea grew before we thought about logistics.
Yeah. That's normally
that's
how
okay,
it goes.
you know?
Yeah. Like that's
you
the
make it
thing.
work after.
Yes.
And I think that's what we've done.
Yes. So I love that. But I want to backtrack just a little bit. You mentioned you went to school and then you lived in New York for a while. So I would love to know a little more about your journey through New York to Berlin, and perhaps even your love story with Lou, and just how you guys came to be in this partnership and beyond.
Sure. Well, okay, I'll start before New York because that's when Lou and I met.
Okay.
We actually, when I was a junior in college and he was a sophomore in college, we ended up on the same study abroad program in Barcelona just by like chance. And there's like, I don't know, less than 30 kids on our program. And Lou and I hit it off like very fast and fell like madly in love in Barcelona. It was like a 6-month program. And that was the first time I had really lived abroad. And I don't know, I felt like a real adult, you know, and it was amazing. And we saw the city, we traveled a bit in Spain together. But at that point, he was going to school out on the West Coast at Reed College. And I was at Colby College, which is a small school in Maine. So we were basically on opposite coasts. And so we weren't really thinking like long term. It was kind of just like, you know, a summer love that happens very fast and is exciting. And so we went back our separate ways to colleges. And then Lou ended up transferring to NYU and we like got back in touch. And then we started dating again and then kind of have been inseparable ever since that point. And I think what's been so interesting for me is Lou has definitely like opened my mind up to a lot. He was, when I met him, like much more, I don't know, I don't think I had politically developed completely yet. I was still kind of naive, and Lou was radical, and, you know, I had never met anybody like him. And even though he wasn't like a vegetarian or anything like that, he had very like radical political beliefs, and that was a great exposure for me. And I think it started like opening my mind up to this, like the world is bigger than Connecticut. That's like where I grew up. And so it's like living in Barcelona and all of the Catalunya and like Catalan stuff that was going on there. It was just an amazing experience. And so from then on, we went back to dating again when he went to NYU. And then I graduated, I moved to New York, we moved in together, which was really fun and amazing. We lived in this shoebox of an apartment on the Lower East Side. It was so tiny. Like it was the size of the van. That's why we weren't worried about the van. Like,
oh my gosh. Wow.
It was a studio that they just put in a wall so they could claim it was like a 1-bedroom, but the queen mattress touched both sides of the wall.
Oh, New York City is ridiculous.
It's insane. We were paying like $1,800 in rent a month, I remember. And it was the tiniest place ever. People would come over and they were shocked. But we were, you know, right in the heart of the Lower East Side. So for us, it was perfect. And it was a really magical time looking back. But during it was very difficult, especially when my hours started getting crazy with this startup that I was working at. And, you know, I only saw Lou on Sundays, and I was doing sales, like tech sales. So I was going out with clients like every single night, like drinking a ton. And I was just exhausted. And after that job ended, I was just like a shell of a person. And so that's kind of when we started thinking like, this isn't really something that's sustainable or the way we want to live our life. But I didn't really know what other options were. And that's when Lou's parents were like, you know, you guys could always move to Berlin. And we were kind of like, whoa, well then.
That's pretty amazing. Like, who says that? Like, who just, that's crazy. That's amazing.
Yeah,
though.
we're so fortunate like that they had that place and that they were so generous to do it, because you know, they didn't make us pay rent, which is just such a luxury. And so for like the time that we were in Berlin, we could have that like space to really be like, you know, worst thing that happens is we like go back and get a job. But like right now, this is like okay for us to just like do this. And I was not like, I don't know how you engage with social media naturally, or if it was something that you just like loved writing and we're like, okay, this is what we're going to do. But that's kind of for us. We're like, we want to make videos, but like, it seems like social media has to be a part of that. But we've never been like, I didn't know how to use Instagram. I didn't even know about YouTube. Like I didn't watch YouTube videos. We were first on Vimeo because we're like, that's where like artsy people are.
Right.
That didn't work at all.
Right.
My mom was like, no one's there.
So Berlin, you guys ended up in Berlin. And what was the first thought when you walked into your new home? And did you have any apprehension, like, what the heck did we just do? Or was it from the beginning just immersed in discovery and adventure and excitement?
You know, when I was like trying to think about what I wanted to talk about, I thought that would come up. And it's actually, I think, our time in Berlin was such a like mixed bag for me, because I almost think I was like running away from New York because that job was so intense and I was so depleted. I just like needed something else. But when I got there, I was like expecting just, being dropped in a new place to fix all of my issues. And it's not really how it works, and that's like kind of where I actually learned. I didn't know about what self-care was at that point, but that's when I first started diving into it on my own. And I learned how to meditate there. I like started trying to do a yoga practice the best I could. And, making friends when you're completely new in a city. Like luckily I had Lou, but it was just like a lot more than I expected at first. But it ended up being the most transformative 3 years of my life, hands down. Like I got to meet people from such different backgrounds, and that was really, really profound for me, especially getting to be friends with older women. I feel like in college and, right outside of college, at least like my experience was I was just friends with my peers. Right. So it was just like people exactly just same grade as me, even like, you don't even like really have friends that far away from you. And so then when I think we moved there when I was maybe 23 or 24, and I was meeting women in like their early 30s. And I remember being like, coming home one day from meeting somebody, and she was Argentinian. She was like 32. She wasn't married. She wasn't like so focused on her career. She like kind of was doing this, like she wanted to be in architecture, but she was doing this thing with furniture on the side. And I was just shocked because like when you go out in New York, it's like, what do you do? What's your marital status? Like, what's your plan for your 10 years? Blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And Berlin was just such a breath of fresh air for me. And it just changed my whole perspective on life. Like you don't have to define yourself by like your job or your friends or anything. It's like who you are, your passions matter, whether they're like validated from like society or not. And that was really helpful for me because I feel like, I don't know, in the States, everything's so competitive. And so you're kind of scared to start new things because what if it doesn't go well, or there's already all these people who are already doing it so much better than I could ever do it. And it's like in Berlin, it's just people are free to do whatever they want, whenever they want. And since it's such a cheap city, there's not as much pressure on people to pay rent. So everybody's got these little like awesome side projects. And I don't know, it was such a good experience for me. And van life is definitely like sprouted out of living in a space where like that is kind of a normal thing to say that you might want to do, you know?
Yeah. I mean, just hearing you talk has me wanting to explore other places a lot more. And it's always been on my heart to travel and just get out of the States and see how other people live. And almost every person I've spoken with who has, become a transplant in another part of the world has said exactly what you've said. And I think finding that sense of freedom outside of the norm brings a new sense or a new form of enlightenment. And it's extremely courageous that you and Lou took on Berlin and now have transitioned into exploring your surroundings in a van. I just want to talk about how you found the van. And I see like all the maintenance you guys have been doing. Like, I just want to know, how has that been for you? It's different with a car, you have to make it livable, so I want to know, like, what has been your most prized moment with the van, and when it first started, that first rev of the engine, like, let's go, how has that like transformed you even more? Because I feel like that would be transformative and just a whole new experience on its own. So let's dive into that a bit. How did it all come to fruition? How did you find a van? How about we start there?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, oh gosh, this van journey has been wild, like a very wild ride. So last summer, Lou and I started like browsing the equivalent of like Craigslist in Germany and equivalent sites for cars. And then we ended up finding there was like 6 cars that were like the type of car that we wanted to get in all of Germany. And so we ended up like renting a car and then driving all throughout Germany one weekend, seeing all, like, I think we saw 6 different vans. And we fell in love with this one van. It was in Munster. It was a really sweet German couple, young couple who had just like done their own European tour with it for a few years. And now we're like kind of settling back and moving into an apartment, and they needed to sell it. And we just fell in love with this car and ended up, after a lot of back and forth with the owners, getting it. And then, because the timing hadn't been ideal, we'd always planned to get the van at like the beginning of a summer in Berlin and then work on it in Berlin and then drive off.
Mm-hmm.
But because the timing didn't work out, like they didn't want to sell their van till later because they wanted one last summer, and then paperwork in Germany and blah, blah, blah. Not fun stuff. We ended up like not being able to get to work on it till January.
Oh my goodness.
So
in winter.
Germany is cold. Yeah, like it's the winter. And we were like, gosh, what are we going to do? Because we couldn't even really find a parking space to like work on the van. You know, you need to like have a space to put your tools and all this. And so then I was like, I don't know where this idea came from. I was like, well, let's just go to the warmest place in Europe and like rent a house, because, you know, rents aren't that expensive. And so we ended up finding a house. I found a house for us in southern Spain in the mountains, like an hour south of Malaga. And we moved there into this teeny little cottage. A British woman owned like a kind of a finca, a farm there that had a couple different houses on it. And so we moved in there, and wow, it was like 800 euros a month, I think, for a whole cottage. And we got a parking space. Not really. It was like a donkey pen. Literally 2 donkeys in it, Myrtle and Nush Nush. They became our quick friends. And so, yeah, we just finished 6 months at this cottage.
Wow.
And every day, wow, Alex, I have like never worked so hard physically in my life. Manual labor is no joke. And this was at least like a project that we chose to do. It just gave me so much perspective on different types of jobs out there. But it was so rewarding to like build something with our hands. You know, like all this like social media content. It's amazing. I love making videos and talking to people via our newsletter or Instagram and those things. But to actually make something physical,
Yeah.
and like end the day and be like, I built that wall, or like I put in that sink. It was so rewarding. It made me realize how much I need to prioritize physical creation in my life and this virtual work that we do, because they are like a little bit different, and they bring out a different side of you, you know?
I definitely can relate to that, because social media can make things a little cloudy, you know, especially when you're trying to live in the moment. So it was really awesome to hear you say that you were able to use your hands and kind of disconnect from social media. I saw one of your posts this morning, and you were like, it's been a month, I haven't updated. And I think that that's great. Being in the present moment is something that I feel like our society has lost sight of. So the fact that you and Lou had to build something with your hands and maybe not document every second of it, or document what you could, it just is a testament to, you know, being present and showing up in a way.
Agree.
Yeah, and showing up in a way that you can.
Like we were just like in this mountain, and it's like we didn't have like Wi-Fi all the time.
Right.
And it was just the 2 of us. And, you know, we would get like emails back from our newsletter, like, how are you 2 surviving? It's like the 2 of you alone in the mountains. And, you know, it's funny because it was actually something that I think physical projects, it almost felt like I don't know, like something like every couple or even family or group of friends should do together, because you have to be so honest with each other and like break down all barriers, because everything's just to come to the surface because you're working together long hours, you're exhausted. Obviously somebody's going to get like snippy or like something like that. And it's like, if you hold on to that, like, wow, like I can't believe he said, pass me the wrench in a weird way, blah, blah, blah. You hold on to that, like that's just going to bubble up and you'll deal with that 2 days from now in a big explosion. And so I feel like Lou and I already were very, very close. Like we moved to Berlin together and like went through so much, but the van build was such a transformative experience for our relationship because we just really had to rely on each other and only each other. And I don't know, I feel like now that we just finished our first week living in the van, it's almost done, but the rental ended and we just had to move in. We're reaping the reward of all of that effort. And it's like we built this together. It almost is like, it's like our first home, but we made it. It was such a hard but rewarding time. It was like, I don't know, it was definitely taught us so many lessons because you have nobody else to rely on but each other.
So that leads me to my next question. I actually have written down here, falling in love while exploring. And I would love for you to dive a little deeper into that because, yes, you are leaning on each other 100%. You are seeing each other's faces all day long. So it's like, how do you lean into your love even more deeply than before? I mean, you touched on it a little bit, but I would love for you to like go a little bit deeper and explain like what that's done for you and Lou, individually for you. I know you can speak for yourself, and then as a unit, how has that brought you closer and deepened the love that you have for one another?
Yeah, I mean, I think like the main thing that it's done is like our communication and our trust is so much deeper now. And I think that a lot of that too is just because we get to spend so many hours together, like that makes me feel so fortunate because the way that most people's relationships work because of jobs and other demands, you might get like 2 hours with your partner at night. Like some people don't even get to live in the same place because their jobs are keeping them apart. Lou and I get so many hours together that I feel like almost like we've had a whole marriage, because we've gotten so many hours in and such quality time together, creating things together and being partners both in our marriage, but like in our business too. And I think, at the beginning when we were working on this, it was definitely something that was difficult to manage how many hours we'd be, because we were first time entrepreneurs, you can pour every hour into this and every dinner conversation is more about what you're working on. And you kind of lose the relationship to this creation of yours. Yeah. But now I think that we've gotten a little bit further down the road and the van is much calmer. We can have the space to be individuals as well as things that we do for work. Yeah. I love drawing right now. It's like something I'm obsessed with, but it's not like a huge part of our channel right now. So I can find space for myself to, draw or read and do these other things. Lou right now is getting really into making necklaces. Ooh. And so he's doing that. So I guess part of these things are ultimately we'll probably sell those necklaces on our site, but it's still something that's individual work that you can do on your own that makes you feel good because you're being it's productive. You're just creating things makes you feel good. Right. But we get to have things that are apart too. And I think that was really important at first, when you're living in a new city alone together or now in this van together in the mountains together, you need to find little things that are your own because I think it makes you feel like you can be a better partner when you feel like an individual too, if that makes sense.
Oh my goodness, that totally makes sense. I always say that your partner should complement you, right? Not complete you. And I feel like when you're living in these small spaces or just, in partnership anywhere in life, you have to be your own person in order to come together and be with somebody else. Because that's when you get the most healthy and honest and purest form of love and partnership. When you have that individuality, you can bring it to the table and then you can make something even more beautiful. And that is power in itself. So I'm just commending you for being in this space and going for it. Not many people would do this. I wouldn't do this. Like, it scares me. I'm like, oh, I love seeing their journey, but could I do this? And Ryan and I have talked about packing our stuff and just getting an RV and going. And then we're like, with two babies, well, a big girl and a baby girl. And like, how would we make that work? But people do it, and it can work. And I mean,
it's funny because I just came off of our first week, like in the van.
Yeah.
And like the first 2 days, I was like, oh man, what did I get myself into? Like, do I tell Lou? Do I not tell Lou?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Holy moly. This is no joke. Like the first night we didn't, you learn things on the road very quickly. Like the first night we didn't park somewhere that had a breeze. And we were exhausted from doing all this stuff, getting off a plane and coming and getting into this van. And it was so hot, like disgustingly hot. And we don't have a fan because we didn't think about that. And I was just laying there and I was just like, wow, like this is what we've chosen. And then I was like, wait a minute, Dana, take a second. And I was like, when you're camping, you love hiking during the day. But when you get back to your tent, it's not the best, it's not a bed, it's not home. If you have to pee in the middle of the night, you have to walk all the way down this campsite. And so just like my mantra while I was like trying to fall back asleep, which was impossible. It's just like, you love camping, but you hate sleeping in a tent. You love camping. And I was just like, everything will be fine when the sun comes back. And then but like that first night, I was like, damn, like there's so many parts of it that you can take pictures of for social media that are so amazing.
Yeah.
But then there's a lot of little bits and pieces, like having a bathroom like a foot from your bed and having to like there's like details that people don't talk about that I definitely do want to talk about when we get further down the road in the van, because like the van is incredible and I'm so happy we did it because it's beautiful. It's our home and we can go see all of Europe.
Yeah.
But you do give up some things that people I don't think always remember when they're like, oh my God, I wish I could do that. It's like, okay, you probably could do that. It's a very cheap lifestyle.
Right.
If you wanted it, you could go for it. But like, remember that like there's parts of this, like we showered once last week.
That was my next question. Showering and not having access to a bathroom.
He built a little bathroom. So that is a hilarious thing that because we were just like, what are we going to do if we don't have a bathroom? Like you're like your whole day is then built around like going to a coffee shop or finding places. And we wanted to be able to be like self-reliant.
Okay. So
we have a tiny little bathroom. It is ridiculous, but it works fine at the moment. But for a shower, we didn't have room for it. So my dad, like, he was like, oh, I think I have this old camping shower. You guys can have it. I was like, sweet. And so basically it's just like an industrial Ziploc bag equivalent. And then at the bottom of it, it has like a little spout. And so you can hang it up and the sun can heat the water if you wanted to, or you can just like fill it up. And so that's how we took our first shower. It was just like Lou holding this like big Ziploc bag above my head. And I was like in a random parking lot, literally a parking lot, and people driving by in my bathing suit, just taking a shower. It was a riot, but it felt amazing. And I was like, we should definitely do this more.
I really hope you're journaling all of this. Yeah. Because like even the moments that you're not sharing on social media and just having something to flip back and be like, babe, look where we've come from. Like, look at this adventure that we had. And even if you continue to do this for years down the line, just your first moments of van life and exploration on the road. I mean, that is just magical, girl. I am so proud of y'all for getting that van up and going, because I was on your social media looking like, okay, where's this van? How are they going to do this?
So silent. Yeah, I mean, you said like, what's your most proud moment so far in the van? And it's like, honestly, the feeling when we connected those solar panels to our battery, like this system, building our own electrical system, we had to learn a lot.
Yeah.
But you don't really know, are you doing it right? So then the moment of truth, when you touch that cord to the battery, like plus and minus sides, and it turned on, like Lou and I were like dancing around. I mean, granted, it didn't quite work. The water pump was like short circuiting it, but then we were able to like, nothing works perfectly when you're just learning. It's like the sink is leaking and it's like things like that. But we plugged in our phone to charge and it worked. And it's like the fridge turned on and Lou could drink a cold beer that was like cold because of our solar panels. Like how amazing is the sun?
Yeah.
Like it transformed that. And like, I don't know, I like made our own curtains. Like I hand sewed these curtains and they have little magnets at the bottom so they can like attach so that they stay still, and they can like really make it so no one can see in. And when I put that magnet down, I'm like, wow, like
I did that. Yeah.
Like little things. It's like, that's what the van teaches you is little things are so powerful. And I feel like I hope that stays with me even when we're not living in a strange, like who knows, I guess maybe we live in these kind of things forever, but at some point, I assume we'll be in a house or apartment or something. And I hope the little things I still can appreciate, like running water.
Yeah, that is, wow. That is amazing for you to say that, because I was having this conversation yesterday about just being intentional and mindful. And I think like when we have everything at our fingertips, like a shower, like a bathroom that you can, a toilet that you can flush, like running, right? Yeah. Like running water, blinds, everything. We get so caught up in our day-to-day routine that we forget to express gratitude for being able to touch and feel and absorb certain aspects. So for you to say like, I hope that I can be this intentional and mindful when we settle back into wherever it is, I think that you will be, because this is a daily practice and ritual for you guys now. Mm-hmm. And that gratitude is never gonna leave, because you're gonna end up in maybe a house or an apartment and be like, remember when we didn't have running water and now look, you can just flip on the sink and it runs and you can turn it off, like just different things that make us more in the moment and mindful. And that's just awesome. That's awesome.
Thank you so much. I feel, it's such a wonderful experience, because I feel like it really gives you like these highs and lows.
Yeah.
It's amazing. You wake up and you're like, I am like on the coast of Portugal and this is spectacular. And then a different moment, it's like, oh man, like the sink short circuited and now no electricity works, or a mosquito is in here and I've gotten 50 bug bites. And so I think that it really helps you stay grounded in what you're trying to do, because you have to decide every day that this is still what you want, You
have to choose it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So as we wrap up here, I wish I could talk to you all day long, because I'm extremely fascinated and just so incredibly honored to even have you on the show. I want to talk about 3 things. The last 3 things are self-care in small spaces. Like, how are you making you time, even if that means like leaving the van and roaming by yourself, and taking your art with you. What travel has taught you about community, and what you've learned about discovering adventure.
Ooh, these are great questions. Okay, well, the first one, the self-care one, this is like something that I was like very nervous about going into the van, because I realized like how important it was for me to have my own space. And one of the things I'm really happy is I ended up, I don't know if you know Yoga for Adrienne.
I don't.
Love her.
Okay, I'll
so
check her
much.
out.
Yeah, she like has a YouTube channel, and she's just so incredible, because her yoga is like literally for everyone. There's different levels. It's not this like crazy, I'm not that good at yoga. It's not like I'm doing handstands or back bends or all these things. So it's like very accessible, which I love. And she's just wonderful. But besides that, I used to do a lot of her YouTube videos, but she has this like offline thing. So I bought that, and it's like $10 a month, which seems like a lot, but it's like for a yoga class, if you went to a place, it would be, I don't know, 15, 20 bucks. So I feel like I can make the space in my budget for it, and I can do offline. So that's been huge, because we don't really have a lot of Wi-Fi. So when we had Wi-Fi, I downloaded like 20 of her classes. And so now in the morning, even like in a parking lot, which sounds weird, but you can find little nooks here and there behind a tree or something like that. I roll out my mat and I do a yoga class, and that really grounds me and really makes me feel like I'm like making space for myself. I brush my teeth more, like multiple times a day. And I feel like it makes me feel clean. And I don't know, self-care can always be such a, make it out to be such a complicated thing, but it's really like listening to, like, when for me, self-care is like listening to my body and honoring what it needs, like truly giving myself what I need and want, whether it's, a smoothie bowl, or if it's chocolate, or if it's a run, or if it's laying down and taking a nap. It's like, if I can make the space to do what my body actually wants instead of trying to like force it into something I think it should be doing, that's like for me what self-care is.
I love that. What has traveling taught you about community?
I think I like took my community for granted a little bit before we moved away. And so it showed me how hard it is to build that when you do go somewhere new, and how much you just have to put yourself out there and be brave, and what rewards you get by like making those real friendships again. So it's like, it probably took me a year and a half to really have true friends in Berlin that I could, call for anything or like really open up to. And I think that putting in that effort sometimes is too scary for people. I have friends who have moved to new cities, and then it's like, if they maybe don't connect with anybody and they feel lonely or things like that. And it's like, you just have to remind yourself that like, if you keep pushing through, you will build that community, and it's worth it. But on the other side, it has made me like really think, like, that same focus of, this is a decision about realizing what I like left behind, like my family and all of my dearest friends. I don't know, if somebody's like thinking about moving, you really have to like consider both sides to it, the excitement of the adventure and like the pain of not being close to loved ones is definitely a balancing act. And I don't always know what the right call is there.
I like that. And then lastly, discovering adventure. What has van life taught you about discovering adventure?
It has definitely pushed me into being more spontaneous, which I need. I'm like such a planner. I love having a 5-year plan, a 10-year plan. I love knowing everything about what's going to happen in the future, which makes absolutely no sense because you don't know what's going to happen. And I think the van just pulls me back to the present and lets me be like, what do we want to do today? What can we do today? The world is our oyster. And I think that that's something that is an aspect of my personality that I need to grow. And so this has been really good for me to like expand myself and see what's out there every day instead of making a to-do list when it's like, why am I making a to-do list? I made this life. This is my job. Like there should be nothing on my to-do list that I don't want to do,
I love that, Dana. That's a great way to end. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
This was such a treat. Thank you so much for having me. I feel so honored to be among all the other incredible women you've had on the show.
If you want to keep up with Dana and Lou, you can do so by following them on Instagram at Wild We Roam. The Hey Girl podcast is a member of the District Productive, produced by Paul Woody Woodhall and me, Alex Elle. Music by DC's own Kokai.